What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the BallGame podcast. I'm Matt.
I'm Tom.
I'm Chris.
Did you forget your name for a second there, buddy?
I don't know why. I was going to say I'm Chris, and then I was like, nah, I won't do it.
The Chicago Bears just recently hired Ben Johnson to be their new head coach, and I think a lot of people, especially Chicago Bears fans, are super happy about that. But guess what? Today, the GM position for the Chicago Bears is wide open, and Chris over here is going to get the opportunity to interview for it and take the job.
Yep.
So
we will get into character of the Bears ownership group. I don't who owns the Bears.
It's a great question. I forget.
You work on that.
I forget. Who
we
it
do
is.
now. So
Yeah, we're the owners.
and we're tired of Ryan Pohl's shit. So we canned him, and we're gonna give some interviews and look at some potential prospects for the general manager position. So
Yeah, he made a great head coaching hire just to get his ass canned.
yeah,
So
yeah, I wasn't a fan. All right.
yeah.
So Mr. O'Brien, how you doing today?
I'm doing swell.
Happy to be here.
I am happy to be here.
All right. So
Are you excited to potentially become the general manager of the Chicago Bears?
I am. We have a great foundation. Well, not we. You guys have a great foundation in place.
don't forget that.
Yeah, I'm not here
forget
yet,
that.
but
All
we got a
right.
great
So
foundation.
obviously, first question: franchise quarterback drafted first overall last year. What's the plan to help Caleb Williams and aid in his development alongside the new hire in Ben Johnson?
Ideally, and I think Ben Johnson would feel the same way, we want to make the game as easy as possible for Caleb. Ben Johnson coming from a team like Detroit, and listen, I think our guy Caleb is much more talented than who they had over there in Detroit and Jared Goff, but we saw what Ben Johnson was able to do with a guy like Jared Goff. Why was Jared Goff so great these past few years? Because Ben Johnson made the game easy for him by establishing the run, building up the trenches, and just, having some trickery to just take the pressure off of a guy like Jared Goff. So I think we want to replicate that. And listen, we know Caleb could be a superhero. We know Caleb could be a superstar. But he struggled in his rookie year with some of the simple things, and I think that was a testament to the infrastructure around him and him feeling like he had to be Superman at times and doing too much. So we don't want Caleb to think too much. We want the game to come to him. And I think me and Ben Johnson, I think we're on the same page in that. I trust Ben Johnson to be able to do that based on what he did in Detroit. So
okay. So now, how can you, in your position, make Caleb's life easier?
I know they're a division rival and we're supposed to hate them, but I think it's replicating everything that the Detroit Lions did. I think we gotta keep
Bastards.
I know.
they're good.
I know.
Hate 'em.
But they're successful. You gotta call a spade, as the kids say.
Sure.
They're a successful organization right now, and they're doing it the right way. And I think step number one is getting Caleb some protection because, I love Caleb. That's our guy. But Caleb has a tendency to take some sacks, some not needed sacks that kill our drives. And I think part of that's on Caleb. And, me and Caleb will have that talk face to face. Me, Caleb, and Ben Johnson, we'll talk about that. And he'll know that. Some of that's on him. But I think a large part of that, again, is him not trusting his offensive line and trying to do too much. And I don't think he's wrong for not trusting his offensive line. I think the past ownership group didn't do a great job of, well, not ownership group, general manager group. You guys are still the owners. The past front office group didn't do a great job of building a great O-line around him, especially on the interior of the offensive line. So I think that's step number one is getting a solid, beefy interior offensive line for Caleb.
Yeah, that college shit doesn't play all the time in the NFL, so Caleb's gotta get over that. Okay, so you mentioned fixing the offensive line. Is there a plan of attack? Are there targets in free agency that we have in mind?
First target off the bat, player number one on our free agency board. Again, me and Ben Johnson talked about this. He's coming from Detroit. I see a guy who was there with him in Detroit, Kevin Zeitler, is a free agent. That's the first guy. That's number one on our free agency board. A veteran, a proven veteran who's been around the league, been around many different teams, and He'll protect Caleb. He'll protect our
You got
guy.
to probably convince the guy not to retire too. So it's going to take a pretty penny to get him. Is there backup plans? Are there other guys, younger guys potentially that fit the timeline, or?
So I mean, there's a bunch of guards. I mean, younger guys, not really. There's another veteran in Brandon Sheriff from the Jaguars who very similar to Kevin Zeitler. He's been around for a while. He knows the ins and outs of how to protect an NFL quarterback, and I think that's what we're looking for. We have young tackles with Darnell Wright and Braxton Jones, so we're not really necessarily going after youth on our offensive line. We're going for talent, and honestly, we're looking towards veterans. We want veterans to be able to help Caleb. So a guy like Brandon Sheriff, a guy like what's his name, Daniels from the Steelers,
James Daniels.
James Daniels from the Steelers. You know, even a guy who's a backup for the Panthers this year, I think, Austin Corbett. You know, so a bunch of veterans are on the market right now. So we're kind of going after all of them. Again, I feel like we're pretty set at our tackle positions. We trust those young guys to keep growing, and I think the way to help those guys grow is to put some veterans around them on the interior. So, and you know, all three of our interior offensive linemen are free agents this year, from left guard all the way to right guard, including the center. So we're trying to reshape the entire interior of our offensive line.
Okay. So, that's the offensive line. Now there is the question of the weapons. We were praised for the weapons we had last year, and Keenan Allen is a free agent. DJ Moore had some locker room issues. Is there any plans with those guys? You bring Keenan back. Do you like DJ Moore? Do you think he's a problem, as some people think he is, or where do you go with as far as the weapons group?
I think DJ Moore is a great player. I think the past offensive minds, Shane Waldron and then Thomas Brown for the latter half of the year, they misused a guy like DJ Moore. And I think they misused our top 10 pick last year in Rome Odunze. You know, Caleb, the number 1 overall pick, gets all the recognition and media attention, but they forget we had 2 top 10 picks last year. And I think it was honestly malpractice the way the Chicago Bears used Rome Odunze last year. And I think Rome and DJ kind of have to flip roles. And I think Rome has to be our de facto wide receiver 1, not necessarily lead us in targets, but play that X position, and then we could use DJ Moore where he's best in the underneath and the screen games to kind of get him going. So
Okay, so you mentioned top 10 picks last year. We also have a top 10 pick this year. We have the 10th pick in the draft. Any ideas there? Do you want to trade down? Whatever you want to do.
there's one guy. It's Ashton Genty.
I knew it was coming.
It's Ashton Genty. Like I said, our main priority is to make the game easy for Caleb Williams. And what better way to do that than to bring in a generational running back prospect? I know we might get clowned for it. Oh, they took a running back in the top 10 picks. They have so many other needs. Look at what the Lions did. I'm going to keep referencing them because we brought in their guy, and they did it the right way. They didn't care that, they might have got clowned for that pick, because look how it worked out for them. So I think a guy like, if we do what we're supposed to do and address the offensive line, ideally in free agency with the proven veterans, but also, we have a whole draft. Obviously, the first round is the most important pick, but we have a whole draft. And we're going to target offensive line later in the draft as well and bring in some younger guys like you mentioned before, Mr. Owner. I don't know your name, Mr. Owner, but Mr. Owner. We're going to bring in some young talent to go on that offensive line as well. But we want to be the mean, lean, orange, and not green Chicago Bears, and we want to pound that rock. So, yeah, Ashton Genty is the target for us. That's who we want to bring in.
So, positional value out the window in that regards. You think he's that good of a talent to where he's going to transform life for Caleb Williams?
I do. I think he's not only a weapon in terms of running the ball on the ground, but he's also a weapon in the receiving game that people don't really talk about. His junior year, he was one of the sophomore year. He was one of the better receiving running backs in the country. People don't talk about that because of how great he was this year on the ground, but he's a great receiving back. So I think having that check down option for a guy like Caleb Williams will make his life easier, because Caleb, maybe doesn't always take the check down. But again, I think it was Caleb all last year being in his head and not trusting his guys. You have a guy like Ashton Genty out there. You trust that guy to be able to take the pressure off you and take the check down. So, yeah, Ashton Genty's our guy.
The rest of the running back room, DeAndre Swift, Roshan Johnson. Do we like where we're at there, or are there outside additions we'd potentially like to make?
I think those guys are cool. I think again, you think you bring in a guy like Ashton Genty to be the guy and be the 3-down back, and that's all fun and games. But we're seeing in today's NFL, you need to have depth at that position. And I think DeAndre Swift and Roshan Johnson kind of offer a blend of different things to be able to give, spell Ashton Genty at times when he needs a break. And, Roshan with his short yardage ability and able to run in between the tackles. And then DeAndre Swift, I know he gets shit on by the media, but we know DeAndre Swift's a damn good receiving back and DeAndre Swift's a threat to break off a 50-yard play any given moment. So I like what we have there. And listen, we're kind of stuck with DeAndre Swift.
Yes.
So he kind of has to be a part of the plans.
Yeah.
But we'll utilize him. He's a part of the plan, so we'll utilize him.
So you mentioned, we talked the quarterback, the offensive line, the receivers, the running back, all good stuff. What about the other side of the ball? Our defense was supposed to be our claim to fame last year. It was good, not great. Do you think there are any moves that need to be made there? Any additions, any trades, anything like that?
So I'm looking at the defense very similar to how I'm looking at the offensive line. I think the way to improve this defense for the immediate future is to attack it with veterans coming in through free agency. We need edge help. We went out and traded for Montez Sweat 2 years ago, but we need someone opposite him. And there's some options in this free agency class. I look at a guy like Hassan Reddick, who, look, he was a headache this year for the Jets. But the Jets as a whole were a headache. It's a new day in Chicago. We could deal with that. He's a talented player who we would like in this building. But, I mean, there's some other options. Even a veteran like Charles Omenihu from the Chiefs, there's some guys. A Josh Sweat from the Eagles. There's guys out there. So, yeah, I think, Marcus Davenport from the Lions. There's guys out there who I think could help us. And, again, we could add youth in the later rounds of the draft. Again, that's a big thing that I'm looking towards because, the media and the fans will always look at your first-round pick and your second-round pick. But it's a 7-round draft. We have a ton of draft picks this year. So we're looking to add our depth through the draft with young talent. But for the immediate future, we want some veterans, and I think we do that by adding edge help in free agency.
Okay, so I have this question. You said Genty at number 10 is the one and only. So are there prospects that if they were to fall causes you to change your plans? Obviously, Travis Hunter likely off the board. Obviously, an Abdul Carter off the board. Are there other prospects that...
So, to me, Genty is the third best player in this draft class. Travis Hunter is obviously, I think Travis Hunter is the best player in this draft class. A guy like Abdul Carter, listen, he'd be great for us. He'd fit him perfectly next to Montez Sweat. We'd love to have him, but, in a perfect world, we'd be able to get him. But he's not going to be there on the board for us. So, assuming those two guys are gone, Ashton Genty is the best player on the board for us at pick number 10.
All right. Okay. Will Johnson, not a thought. You think our corner room is...
I think our corner room is great. We have the best corner in all of football in Jalen Johnson. We have a guy in Tyreek Stevenson who, look, he got clowned this year for some moments. But,
yeah.
If you really break down the film, he's a good player. We have a good nickel corner in Kyler Gordon. We have some good safeties. I know you guys were mentioning potentially us cutting a guy like Kevin Byard to save some money. Listen, we have money, guys. And Kevin Byard... he fits the mold of what I want. The guys that I want to add, Kevin Byard, we already have one. He's a proven veteran. He's been around. He's seen it all, and he could help the young guys grow. So Kevin Byard's a guy we want to keep around in that safety room.
How do you think the proven veteran, adding all these proven veterans affects the locker room? Obviously, you need veterans in your locker room, and we've had some questions about our locker room, but with a new coach and new veterans, how do you think that molds everyone together?
I think in a perfect world, again, we trust Ben Johnson to not only, be a great coordinator of an offense, but we trust Ben Johnson to be a leader of men and to, exude onto our players what he learned from a guy like Dan Campbell over there in Detroit. And, you look at a team like the Washington Commanders playing in the conference championship this weekend. They kind of did a similar thing. They brought in a head coach who was a leader of men in Dan Quinn, and they brought in some experienced veterans who just their presence on the field makes everyone better. Kevin Byard, he's not a middle linebacker like a Bobby Wagner, but Kevin Byard, being that free safety, he's kind of, he has eyes on everything, kind of similar to a middle linebacker. So a guy like Kevin Byard, having him on the field, ideally makes everyone better. So yeah, I think all these veterans, you look at the guys on the interior of the offensive line that we could potentially add in free agency. Those guys ideally make the guys on the outside better. Our young tackles help them progress. So I think just having a good blend of veterans and youth, I think it'll all come together while we have a leader of men in Ben Johnson to kind of be the cherry on top and kind of tie everything together.
So this will be my closing question. Obviously, every team has an identity. You mentioned the Lions, but we got to keep our own independent identity. We have the Chicago Bears, the 85 Bears. That's what we were always known for. We were known for defense, running the football, and that's how we win football games in this type of weather. What do you want your team to look like in your image?
Exactly that. Exactly that. We already have the pieces in place to be one of, if not the best defenses in the NFL. If we get this draft right and get this free agency right, we could be the best defense in the NFL as early as next year. We had, a few weeks this year where we were the top defense in the NFL. Kind of fell off towards the end of the year, but we have the pieces in place to be the very best defense in the NFL. And I know you'll look at offense, you'll see Caleb Williams, you'll see a guy like Ben Johnson. Ooh, the Bears are going to be fun throwing the ball, but we want to build an identity running the ball and making life easy for our quarterback. So, yeah, I mean, and we want to bring back that feel of the 85 Bears. Get the fans back into it and say, hey, this reminds me of those Bears who were victorious and who were at the top of the NFL. So,
and you think that'll bring out the best in Caleb?
I do.
So my closing question will be this. We are in probably the most competitive division in football. We obviously are bringing you in here because, look, we have not had a lot of success as a team over the past few years. I think that's, fair to say.
Not much of it.
Not much. It's not been fun. Like you said, we got to get fans through the door. We got to get people buying jerseys and tickets and all that good stuff. How quick is this turnaround? What does next year look like? How long before we're legitimate Super Bowl contenders?
I'm going to be honest, it's contingent on Caleb. And that might be a lazy answer, but that's why we drafted him. And I wasn't here for that, but that's why we drafted him with the #1 pick. Listen, we could be a great defense as much as we want. We could run the ball as much as we want. My motto is to win a Super Bowl, you have to have elite quarterback play. And I think Caleb could be that. I really do. I believe in Caleb full-heartedly. But to get to that mountaintop, we need Caleb Williams to be an elite quarterback. So I can't really give you an answer. I don't know what the timeline is. I think Caleb Williams could be a top 5 quarterback as early as next year.
Okay. With
the help that we're going to bring for him. But
okay.
It's contingent on him. And he knows that. We're going to have those conversations.
All right.
I like the guy.
I like the guy too.
I think he's solid.
I like your ideas of just looking around the league, seeing what works, and applying it here. I think it worked. I think that's good.
Copycat league.
Right. Yeah.
I think he's also very realistic. Like next year, it is all dependent on Caleb. If Caleb's top 5 quarterback in the NFL, we're a Super Bowl contender. Like,
sure.
I think people are going to be buzzing about the Chicago Bears being back, but if he's a bust, this will actually be my next question. If Caleb doesn't work out this year, doesn't show massive improvements, is there a year 3?
For Caleb?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Because you're not tied to him.
I'm not tied to him, but I was an assistant GM for some other teams before I got this interview. I've been around the league. Caleb Williams is a guy I've watched closely for many, many years, dating back to when he was at Oklahoma. Caleb Williams is the guy.
All right.
There it is.
But I hope so.
Yeah, we sure should hope so.
You're fucked.
If he doesn't work out, oh boy. But yeah, I think he's hired.
Yeah.
I think he's hired.
I like it.
So don't let him walk out the
building. And you
mentioned,
bringing in, selling jerseys and putting people in the seats. We have a superstar in Caleb Williams. That's why we're looking at a guy like Ashton Genty, another superstar. Absolutely. To get the city buzzing.
All right, you already got the job. You don't have
to yeah, we like Genty too. All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Well.
Yeah. Go for it.
No, I should just give our thoughts on where we think the Bears should. Like I like the Genty pick. I don't think it. I think the whole positional value thing, I think that argument is starting to shift the other way with Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley and Christian McCaffrey in the past. Like these great running backs are like Saquon is carrying them to a potential Super Bowl run. You know what I mean? Like Derrick Henry too did his part for the most part for the Ravens, and so I like Genty there. interior of the offensive line. I like getting the vets there.
Yeah, so I mean, for me, for my opinion on that, I think it's as simple as like, if there aren't players at more valuable positions, in my personal
Right, like
opinion,
an
that
edge
are
rusher,
equivalent
yeah,
or
of
near
course,
equivalent
yeah.
prospects, then if you feel like you're a complete team, you made the moves in free agency, then
Right.
go for it. Like, go for it. Take Genty. If he's the finishing touch on a roster that could contend for a Super Bowl, go for it.
The
Like
Bears
if you have a
really don't have like that many
needs,
holes
yeah.
on their roster.
but if like a
It was
Mason
just
Graham
a
is there,
dysfunction, that's
Right,
why they
yeah,
were
yeah,
bad. But if you
100%.
really like look at the roster, there's really not that many.
there are
holes.
just
No, yeah.
certain prospects I wouldn't pass up on to take a running back in this case. Like a Mason Graham, if he was there somehow at 10, I'm taking a Mason Graham. Like I just value rushing the passer, interior or on the edge. Like that's just how I am. But Genty's generational. We knew this coming out. So
Yeah.
it's a little different there. But yeah, I think the Bears are in a great position. Like they're in a great position. They got the head coaching hire right. I mean,
Shit, if I get Janty with Ben Johnson, oh my god.
That's what I'm saying, bro.
it could be some fire.
I meant in my dynasty league.
Oh.
I have the #1 pick.
Yeah.
If I get a Ben Johnson Janty,
I'm gonna be going for Rome
Oof.
in Dynasty, so I'm gonna be going
Yeah.
for Rome. Rome wasn't built in a day, baby. So
Rome was not built in a day. Yeah, that's a good point.
But
no,
yeah.
the Bears, it's all there, and it's just my only concern with Ben Johnson is he another Shane Steichen or like
yes,
maybe Mike McDaniel? Like, is he just this great offensive mind that maybe isn't the leader
Isn't a
of men you
leader
hope
of
he is?
men,
Like
yeah.
I
that
just
could
think,
be
and I can't like say he is or isn't. We have
Right.
to wait and find
Wait and
out.
see,
But I
yeah.
think being behind a guy like
Dan
Dan
Campbell, yes,
just
yes.
like
instills more
you
confidence. in
learn
that,
so
yeah.
much from a guy like that. So
Right, yeah.
I believe in Ben Johnson.
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, you have the mind for it, and
I
then you
agree.
get to watch the best motivator you could argue in all of football. Like,
Yeah.
that's what Dan Campbell's great at. That is what he's
Yeah.
great at. He's a great motivator, and he makes his team believe in everything.
Yeah.
Everything he says. So, yeah, man, it's gonna be rough for history. For a team with a history of never getting it right at head
Anything,
coach,
head coach
or
quarterback,
at
yeah.
quarterback. It's
Seems
going
like
to be
they
real
nailed it,
interesting
yeah.
this offseason and next year to see if they got it right at both.
Yeah.
So right now, before we end, right now, the Bears have got Ben Johnson. We don't know how good he is. Are we still taking Bo Nix over Caleb Williams long term?
No, this was the hire.
Absolutely not.
This
I
was the
I mean,
hire.
I was on your side with that. I thought that was crazy. But
This was simply that. This was the hire I wanted for them all along. If they got Ben Johnson, I said I would. I think I actually said it on that pod. I said if we got Ben Johnson, then it's a different story. But they have a history of not getting it right, and they got the best guy in the market. So
Yeah.
it changed my mind for sure.
Yeah.
Especially because I'm going to trade for Saquon. I mean, trade for Caleb in Dynasty. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah. All right, Chris, congrats. You got the job, brother.
Thank you. Thank you.
good stuff.
Well deserved, man.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you guys so much for watching. Please be sure to leave a like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, follow us on all of our socials. We have a few videos that have been posted up. We have our best bets that dropped. Honestly, when is this dropping? Probably next week.
We'll see how the cookie
Honestly,
crumbles.
you guys likely are seeing this after the conference championship, so it may be leading up to Super Bowl week. Hope you guys enjoyed conference championship. Hope you guys are going to enjoy Super Bowl week and all the preparation we're going to do for that. Stay on the lookout for a bunch of videos that are going to be coming out around then. Some big news dropping as well at that time. So thank you guys so much for watching. And with that,
Ball game.
Ball game.